All right, hello everybody. I apologize for the late video, but I've been super busy collecting books and acquiring a massive collection of Native American books, listing them for sale. Those will be going up in the next week on my eBay shop. Profess_3268 is my name if you want to check those out. But you know why I'm here. I'm here to give you an update on our first practice. First practice, it was a challenge, right? But it actually went surprisingly well. And I'll tell you a couple of things I learned about how to manage younger kids, and just what my plan is for tomorrow's game. So we start the practice, and this is my first time coaching ever, and I didn't know exactly how to control. I had a good idea, but when you're starting to do pretty basic things, it can get very repetitive, and kids get bored quite easily. And so that was the first thing I noticed, is that they were getting kind of bored. And so I had to create something that was more engaging. But the first thing that I noticed and that went really well was, how do you command the presence of younger people? I think that this is a very fine line between establishing your authority, but also maintaining a friendly demeanor or whatever with them. Because if you're too authoritative, they're going to grow to resent you, right? But if you're too friendly, then they're not going to pay attention to you or respect you when you need them to. So I developed a couple different protocols. The first protocol was eyes. I didn't teach them this. This is just something I did and that they caught on to. That's something kids, I think, will do very quickly, is learn unconsciously what the purpose of a given exercise is. So when I say eyes and I'm darting around, I'm looking at all of them, they look back at me and they recognize that I'm the teacher, the coach right there, and I need to be listened to, right? But the reason they're going to listen to me is because I'm also not micromanaging those little things. They're 10-year-old girls on a rec team, right? They need to have fun. And so there's little things like playing with each other, talking with each other, that I'm going to let go for a long-term vision of how I'm going to manage them, right? Because I felt like this first practice was instrumental in gaining their trust in some way. And even through that first practice, I built up a more dominant position in their minds, by allowing them to do some of these things that most coaches won't permit, especially in older age groups. And I'm not even saying that I would permit it in older age groups, but that was my perspective. So eyes, they would look, right? And then, so going back to how to get them engaged effectively, I realized that you really have to sell a vision to these kids. You have to give them a reason to be doing the drills repetitively. And so what I explained to them is that there were two concepts that I was teaching. There's the offsides concepts, and then there was the clumping concept. So huge problem in youth sports, especially in soccer, well, really only in soccer, is that kids don't spread out to give pass opportunities. They clump up because everybody tunnel visions on the ball. So, and I have a lot of future visions for how to develop a non-tunnel vision, how to develop actual vision. But what I started with was telling them how, if we can understand offsides, we will win a lot of games that way. If we can be better than the other team at understanding offsides, we will win a lot of games. And I could instantly see that little bit of a shift where they started to believe me because I was being sincere, right? And so that's the other thing kids will understand unconsciously, if you're being sincere or not. So you can't start selling them bullshit just because you want to sell them something, right? You have to sell them authenticity, even if that authenticity isn't the most beautiful thing in the world, right? So we're going to win a lot of games if we understand offsides. We're going to win a lot of games if we stay spread out, if we give each other pass opportunities, right? And so moving on from that, the other thing that I notice is, going into the coaching, I had this vision that I didn't want to control the game too much, but that's just not realistic when you're dealing with a younger age group. You have to be the commander of the field. If you, in the context of soccer, normally the midfielder is going to be the one controlling the overall, possession of the ball or movement of the team through communication. But with this age group, there's no girl that's going to be able to, or boy for that matter, that's going to be able to control a field in that way with the vision. So you have to micromanage in a certain respect. You have to micromanage in order to create those positive habits. Now, hopefully later in the season, right, I'll be able to develop them to a point where I don't have to speak as much. But for now, I noticed that I had to speak a lot during drills. I had to keep repeating what exactly the purpose of the drill is, right? And what exactly the methods of the drill are. So I'm going to share with you my offsides drill that I think is very helpful, that maybe some EU coaches watching this will appreciate. So in order to teach them offsides, what I did is I had one offender, one defender, and they would match with each other. And all I had is have them follow each other so they could see where the offsides line is moving. And I had one girl on what would be the defensive side controlling the ball, and her job was to watch the movement, and when they reached back to the center line, make a good sending pass to the offensive player. I didn't engage them in any sort of defense. All I had was the defender mirror the offensive player in order to simplify it. Because the second you start introducing actual skill play into the situation, they get confused very quickly, or not even confused, it just gets hectic because they see the ball and they tunnel vision or whatever. You got to distill it down to very basic concepts. But again, going back, when you distill it down to those basic concepts, they can get bored very quickly. So going back to selling the vision and why these drills are important. And when they started to understand this drill, they would follow, and then they finally understand the pass. Then I introduced an element of defense after the pass where they would challenge and make a move. Okay, so moving on, making a move. Younger players don't always understand what possession or, dribbling really is, At least with the girls on my team, what I noticed is they just wanted to shoot it at the goal. They just wanted to take a shot and have an opportunity to score. They didn't really think about possession, and I think the reason that is because kids have a shorter term vision than adults generally, where they're just more susceptible to that tunnel vision because they don't have all the information yet to give them the context needed in order to successfully execute longer term visions and goals. So I need to explain to them, and that's the next thing I did, what different terms for what we're trying to do. So are we trying to possess the ball right now? Are we trying to shoot the ball right now? Or are we trying to pass the ball? And so demonstrated clearly what a possession would look like, dribbling the ball, and again, extremely basic, shooting and passing. And I tried to explain as well as I could, why we're doing these things. And, it didn't go perfectly. Look, this is our first practice, and these are very young girls, and they're hard, to manage. But like I was saying earlier, I could already see as they started to become more efficient in executing some of these drills, and because I was persistent in teaching them the drill exactly, not giving up on the drill, and I think that's very important because I see a lot of other coaches, even watching the other coaches yesterday that were practicing around me, it was almost like they were defeated. They were defeated to an inefficient team because they didn't want to put in the effort. Not even they didn't know how to put in the effort to manage them. And I hit a couple of roadblocks, but I pushed through those roadblocks, and they started getting excited. They started enjoying. They started high-fiving like naturally, without any encouragement. They were getting excited because other players on the team or themselves were correctly executing a pass, making a move efficiently. So yeah. Now moving on into the second part of or the second drill that I did. It was just a simple throw-in drill. You know, in this context, the only thing I really want to mention is the encouragement of good throw-ins, making sure that a player. So what I did is I just had the players come up and they threw until they got a good throw-in. It wasn't you, then you, then you, then you, no matter what. It was you one good throw-in, next. One girl had to do it 7, 8 times, but she got it. They all got it, and it was pretty much good the rest of the time. So um, that was the throw-in. I introduced a little bit of defense and movement on that, kind of like the offsides drill, and same deal across the board. Now, next was the best part of practice. This went really, really smoothly, and I didn't talk about any warm-ups or anything, but of course, had them do a lap and do some stretching, and made sure to control that. I tried to identify a leader or to bring in a leader, ask if anybody wanted to be a leader, but nobody really volunteered at that point, so I led the stretching. But having them work as a team, that's another thing, run as a team. Everything we do is as a team. There's no individuality in terms of our goal. We're winning as a team. Doesn't mean we're not going to take advantage of the individual efforts of any player or the individual talents of a player, or support them, because like this is a Pat Riley concept. Everybody has a role on a team. Okay, people become successful and become energized when they're effectively executing the role that they're most fitted to, right? People often have the idea that nobody's going to be happy unless they're the alpha, but the truth is not everybody is an alpha. No, not everybody wants to be an alpha. And so if you try to put a non-alpha player in an alpha role, they're not going to do it. But if you also try to get rid of all alpha roles, that's also not going to work. So that's an important thing to also iron out as a coach. But anyways, moving into the third part of practice, we assigned positions and did a little bit of a passing drill. And this was simple, but it was also fluid. And I don't really think I've ever seen somebody do it this way. I kind of naturally did it. I didn't even plan this drill out beforehand, but it was an anti-clumping drill where I assigned them all to their positions, right? And then I just started having them pass around, move up the field, see who's open. And God bless, I had one of the girls' brothers who's about, I think, 13 or 14 years old, was nice enough to help me out. And I could have done this, but it was really nice to have him because then I could control other things. I had him pressure them on the passes and force them into a certain direction so that they consciously had to understand, okay, I'm being challenged in this direction. I'm going to pass it back. I'm going to pass it forward. I'm going to pass it to the midfield, right? And so that was a really effective drill. And so what I did is, at first, like, they would pass it and then everybody inevitably got clumped up. Blow the whistle. Everybody stop. Stand where you are. What is happening right now? We are clumped. If we're and I sold that message to them again. If we can be the team that doesn't clump, we're gonna win a lot of games. And instantly you could see them get energized by that. You could see them get excited, and they really didn't clump up the rest of that drill. And we did that for about 10 more minutes after that. It was the most impressive thing I've seen. I mean, I've watched a lot of U10 games. I've refereed a lot of U10 games in my earlier refereeing years, and they always clump. And I'm not saying we're not going to clump tomorrow, because we probably are going to clump tomorrow. But we might not. We might just be perfect and win every game. I don't know. I continued that drill, and I just started micromanaging a little bit. Okay, she's open. Next, get it back to the midfield, and just getting everything. Stay spread out. Stay spread out. We're clumping a little bit. Back to the goalie. Look for the safety valve. Okay, look to Maddie up the sideline. And so that was just a really, really positive drill, and it went really well. And it's something I would highly recommend you doing with younger players, is engage them in a fluid way where they're going to get into a certain zone, because this is my perception. Younger kids, they're less intellectual than us adults. And us adults often want to intellectualize these things because, I don't know, that's what we know, that's what makes sense to us. But I saw these girls getting into a certain flow state, which was really, really beautiful and really rewarding for me because I had figured out something about coaching where you kind of let them freeform and then you pause for a second to introduce a small intellectual concept. You know what I mean? You pause for a second and introduce the clumping concept, right? But one thing at a time, one offsides play at a time, one throw in at a time, one clumping at a time, all right? And so you can't stop them and say, okay, Maddie, and I apologize for using her name, but it's a pretty common name. I don't think that's going to be too big of a problem. You were too far up the field and you were clumped and this girl has to do that. That's her. No, we're all clumped. We all got to have vision. We're working as a team. So team concepts, individual concepts, one at a time. Stop that and then just kept that rhythm going. When they get into that rhythm of passing, it's like a it's like a reward system of some sort where you have to just get off the blocks and get going. But once it's getting going, um, you know, they're going to naturally follow that and they just want to be free. These kids just want to run around and pass a soccer ball, really. But when you give them a little bit of that structure and then you start to show them and introduce and tell them what the reward is going to be, then they start to follow it. So that was really nice. But after that drill, we tried to do a scrimmage. There was only 6 of them, so that was really hectic. Didn't go very well, but it was a really good first practice. We got our game tomorrow, and so I will try to update you tomorrow. But I may not get to it till the next day because I have a million things to list. I gotta go to the gym. I gotta go to the driving range because I'm doing a golf tournament with some friends in 2 weeks. So yeah, that's where we're at. I'm actually feeling more optimistic than ever. I just gotta hope that we get at least 7 girls that show up so that we can play. But it's a rec team. If we don't, they'll probably drop a player or whatever. But I actually, I got a pretty skilled team here. I'm excited to keep moving with them. And yeah, so wish me luck for tomorrow, 8 a.m. It's gonna be a game. All right, it's gonna be a game. But until then, appreciate you watching. And you have a good one.